Vergil Ortiz versus Jaron Ennis. Who wins and why? Knuckleheads, this is just a fantasy fight right now, right? For not only hardcore boxing fans, but I think a lot of casuals would absolutely love to see this fight, because this would be the biggest fight in the welterweight division not named Spence versus Crawford, which is allegedly now going to happen. But could you imagine Ennis versus Ortiz in a four-man bracket along with Crawford and Spence, and the winner fights the winner and the loser fights the loser? It would be absolutely epic for boxing if they were to pull something off like that. But I digress. Who would win between these two guys? It would be one of the biggest fights, not just in the welterweight division, one of the biggest fights in boxing. And I think there would be a winner. I don't think it will be an easy fight for either guy, but I do think that there's a guy that comes away with the win in this fight, and I'm going to tell you guys exactly why. So first, let's look at the physique of both guys. Both of them 5'10". Ortiz 24 years old, Jaron Ennis 25. They're still babies in this game. They're still puppies in the game. But don't get it twisted. These are both dogs, too, at the same time. And the only difference is the wingspan, with Jaron Ennis having a 2-inch advantage, being more wingy, 74 inches versus 72 inches. That's going to be a factor. That's going to be a factor in a fight like this, but nothing tremendous. Not a tremendous physical advantage. However, once we start talking about athleticism, skills, technique, things start to change. I'll say this. I think Vergil Ortiz has very fast hands. I think he's explosive. I think he throws punches in bunches. I think he's got a lot of power, and I think he's durable. That's why he could make this a fight, and that's why he could win this fight. But one thing that I've noticed in Ortiz, and it came up again in this Mickinson fight that he's just coming off of, is he got turned several times by Mickinson, who's just a decent, pretty decent boxer, not on the level of Jaron Ennis. He got turned by this guy. When the guy was moving laterally, Ortiz wouldn't let his hands go. When he moved laterally, Ortiz would miss. Sometimes he would just pull his punches and abandon the punch midway. Ortiz is a guy that needs to shuffle forward, get you in front of him. He needs to set, and then he needs to let it rip. If you're moving backwards, he can catch you. Once you start going laterally, side to side, he's kind of lost. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I don't know if I'm the only one seeing it, but I'm going to stand on that statement. I think Vergil Ortiz has difficulty with guys that move laterally. Also, he's got the high guard. He comes in, he's got a little bit more head movement. But we saw Maurice Hooker touch him up. A guy coming up from 140 pounds. So what would a guy with the power and the speed and the athleticism and the coordination of a Jaron Ennis do if he landed those punches that Maurice Hooker did? I mentioned the lateral movement and the difficulty Ortiz has with it. Jaron Ennis is absolutely masterful with his movement. A 10 out of 10. He can hit you leaning to one side, off one foot, going backwards, going forwards, diagonal. He shifts and pivots. These are all things Ortiz, you guys, does not do. And this would be a big problem for Ortiz, because I've noticed that his kryptonite, if he has one, right? And we can't talk too much trash about him. The guy's incredible. He's 19-0 with 19 knockouts. It's a 100% knockout ratio. I'm not minimizing the guy, but I'm just so high on Jaron Ennis. He can fight moving laterally. That's going to be a huge problem for Ortiz. His timing is absolutely impeccable, which is what Maurice Hooker used to land on Ortiz. right? Amplified by the sort of leaky defense and the reliance on the high guard, you know, and the basic head movement. I mean, Ortiz's defense is okay, but it's not superb. Jaron Ennis' defense is superb. You don't see the guy getting hit clean. I mean, it's rare that Jaron Ennis gets hit clean. I've seen him catch shots. I've seen him shoulder roll. I've seen his movement. I mean, the guy is just I'm telling you guys, I know you're going to think I'm crazy. He's a once-in-a-lifetime talent. I haven't seen anybody fight like Jaron Ennis when I sit down and analyze it. The only guy that I'm seeing that comes close is Terrence Crawford. He's the only guy that I can see that's as dynamic or as close to being as dynamic as a Jaron Ennis. I would give Ennis the athleticism advantage and the power advantage and the speed advantage over all of these guys. And don't get me wrong, Ortiz is fast. He's got fast hands, but he throws punches in bunches, right? Whereas, and he's got to set before he starts throwing those combos, which are very damaging. But not only can Jaron Ennis throw those combos, just like Ortiz, he can pot shot you. He can be a sniper. He can pick you off. He can finish you with either hand with one shot. With one shot. I haven't seen the guy buzzed. He's more defensively responsible. He's more athletic. He's more coordinated. Like I said, he's got and both guys got an arsenal, right? They can both throw any punch in the book, but I do think Jaron Ennis is more dynamic. I do think his punches are a little bit more crispy, are a little bit more sexy, are a little bit more efficient, are a little bit more flashy. Again, not to say that Vergil Ortiz can't win this fight. He can. He can get anybody up against the ropes and just let a 3, 4, 5 hit combo rip and get anybody out of there. I mean, he's that powerful. He's that scary. But I think he would have to do what he's done in all his other fights against the Jaron Ennis, which is to come forward and break him down. And I don't think Jaron Ennis would just sit there and allow him to do that. I think he would pay dearly, dearly trying to stand there in front of Ennis and get set before he let off those combos. I think he'd get touched multiple times before he got his feet set and ready. And by the time he was set and ready, Jaron Ennis would be turning him the way Mickinson did. Mickinson turned him. What would Jaron Ennis do? If Mickinson's turning you, which, you know, I'm not minimizing Mickinson. He's a good fighter. I thought that was going to be a good fight, and I predicted a late TKO because I thought the guy's tough. But he doesn't have the footwork. He's got great judge of distance, but Jaron Ennis has that, plus the footwork, plus the athleticism, plus the speed. And listen, the accuracy. That's another difference. You know, when Mickinson was moving laterally, Ortiz was missing at times. Like I said, you know, he was missing. He was pulling his punches. He was abandoning, you know, the start of the combo. He didn't have the accuracy the way that Jaron Ennis does. Jaron Ennis, you guys, I mean, we saw him in his last fight, I believe against that Canadian gentleman, where he threw an overhand right and the guy ducked, and the right, midway through, you know, changed trajectories again to land on the guy's temple. I mean, listen, to be fast and athletic and coordinated enough to change the trajectory on your punch while the guy's trying to dodge it, you're in trouble with this guy, I'm telling you. And when I saw the way he did Sergey Lipinets, you know, and this last Canadian guy he fought who had no chance, he had a snowball's chance in hell. I said to myself, this guy's a handful. This guy's an absolute handful. And so as much as I love Ortiz, as much as I would love to see a 4-man bracket between these guys, you know, go forward, this is just a fantasy fight. You know, it's a hypothetical. But as much as I love Ortiz, and I'm a big fan of Ortiz, I just don't think he's got the skills to beat a guy like Jaron Ennis. And you know I got to go with skills. This channel, we always go with the guy with the skills. we always pick the guy who we think has the most skills. So my prediction in this fantasy fight will be Jaron Ennis getting the win. I don't know how he would do it. Maybe it would be decision. Maybe he'd get a late stoppage. He's a knockout artist. He can knock you out with each hand. I don't know what would happen. But I do think he just has too much skill, and Vergil Ortiz has trouble with guys that are moving laterally. He gets hit too much for my liking. The defense is a bit leaky. And he's just a more limited fighter. And it's very similar to me to Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence, right? It's very similar. I feel like Spence fights sort of like Ortiz. You know, he's more basic, fundamental kind of guy, whereas Terrence Crawford is super dynamic like a Jaron Ennis, and that's why I would also pick Terrence Crawford. The only difference here is, you know, this is Crawford 2.0 and Spence 2.0, and, you know, the only difference is one of them is not coming up from a lower weight class the way Crawford is. I mean, Ennis and Ortiz are both legitimate welterweights, so, you know, the more dynamic guy, which is Crawford, you know, against Spence, he's coming up from 140. That's not the case with Ennis. He would be a natural 147-pounder against Ortiz with a reach advantage. Problems. The guy's a problem. Knuckleheads, tell me what you think about this fight if it goes down in the comments below, right? After you do that, like down here, and then subscribe. And then join the channel, help me build, because you know FightersRep 15 is going down September 3rd at the Commerce Casino in Los Angeles. Get your tickets at FightersRep.com or the link below. If you can't come to Los Angeles and watch these fights, join the channel, just $9.99 a month. Cancel anytime to watch these fights. It's going to be the most incredible card we've ever put on. Help me build the channel, subscribe, and join. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say about this fight. This fight is absolutely ridiculous if it ever happens. But I got boots. I got boots all day.